Oh my God. Are you okay?
Yeah. There it goes. Shalom. First thing and foremost, I'm going to give all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem HaKakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well. Peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. Yours in the gospel, bro, lifting up the standard of Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, wherever it may be. Fair use, fair use, fair use. I make no money from these videos. Just intended to edify an audience. We're going into biblical prophecy. Fair use, fair use. But I played that scene at the beginning of the video just in case they complain about it, and I could just chop it off and just start from this point. But what you saw was a scene from the recent Final Destination movie called Final Destination Bloodlines. And the first thing I heard about this story was this Jake here. Basically, it says man dies after weight training chain around neck pulls him into MRI machine. That's crazy, man. Jake, dude. That's some Final Destination type shit. Because it's well known that MRIs, it deals with like magnetic frequencies. And they say MRIs are really not healthy for you because of the radiation and so forth that can go through the blood. But, you know, what is healthy nowadays, you know? But it says man dies after weight training chain around neck pulls him into MRI machine. And that's similar to the movie we just saw, because the guy that just got swallowed up in that machine, he had a lot of jewelry on. And, you know, you may seem like, well, that's unrealistic, but clearly it's not too far-fetched, which those Final Destination movies are onto something, because what happens is that it's these people that cheat death, which in reality of it is you can't cheat death. It's your time to go is your time to go. All right, ain't no freak accident as far as you avoiding a building collapsing on your head and you get out by a landslide and death just comes and gets you right after. That's a little twisted. It's a little twist in that. But regardless of it, when it's your time to go, it's your time to go. But those death scenes in those movies are not too far-fetched if you think about it. Like planes exploding, roller coasters crashing, pile-ups on highways, man, elevators getting stuck. You know, those are very plausible deaths, even though the movie, you know, it dramatizes it, you know, it dramatizes a little bit more. But hey, shit, what's the chances that happened to this dude based on that happened in that movie? All right, because I never heard of anybody dying in an MRI machine before. But I mean, you know, in this world, who knows? Okay, they got a show that was called A Million Ways to Die, and Yahweh Shai Shai can take your ass out in an infinite amount of ways, man. This is why he's to be feared and not to be played with and to be trifled with, man. Okay, we're serving a power that you can't put a limit to his power, man. You can't put a damper on Yahweh Shai. You just can't do it, you know. So this is the reason why you have to remain humble and stay in the good graces of the Heavenly Father, because you just don't know. You just don't know, man. Okay, the Lord hit you with some shit, and before you know it, you through, and you don't see it coming. Judgment is quick. You don't expect it. Then it just bam, it hits you. That's what makes it so terrifying, because there's no preparing for it. It just happens, you know. But anyway, it says a man who wore a large weight training chain around his neck and approached his wife while the magnetic Renaissance imaging, which is MRI machine, scanned her knee at her clinic in New York, died after the device forcefully pulled him, according to the police and media reports. Now, what I did hear is that he was told not to come in, and he came in anyway. So I assume that this come from a thing of being miseducated, because he's probably thinking, oh, this is an MRI machine, it's this and that. But this is why they tell you, when you go in an MRI machine, you to not have no jewelry on, no piercings, no nothing. All right, because for the simple fact, it's called a magnetic resonance imaging machine, which basically sees the bones, it sees the marrow, it sees the muscle, the tendons, and it allows you to diagnose what type of injury you may have. Okay, like a lot of times sports players, they get MRIs if they have like a breakage, or if they have like a lot of muscle issues and joint misalignments, or if they have a muscle imbalances. An MRI is the way to go. I've had a couple of them over the couple of years, dealing with like certain muscular injuries and skeletal, what they call, it's a term they use. It's not muscular. It goes into like your skeletal structure, so to speak. And then they look at the joints and stuff like that to make sure they're still functioning properly, right? But anyway, it says here, the device forcefully pulled him in, according to the police and media reports. It says Keith McAllister, 61 years old, was killed at the Nassau Open MRI Clinic in Westbury, Long Island, after he accompanied his wife, Adrienne Jones McAllister, there on July 16th. It says Adrienne told the local outlets, News 12 Long Island, that an MRI machine there was scanning her knee, and when she called out to her husband, Keith, come help me up, from the table, the technician operating the machine, which looks like a long, narrow tube with openings on each end, then allowed Keith to walk in while he wore a nearly 20-pound metal chain that he used for weight training. So wow, he 20 pounds on his neck, and that shit dragged him in. And the crazy part about it is that the nurse was supposed to tell him, well, if you come in here, you're not supposed to have anything metal or metallic on, because the MRI machine can very well suck you in. And it wasn't like it was like a ring or anything like that. It was like a big ass chain. So it says police in Nassau County, New York, said Keith was then sucked into the device by its potent magnetic force. It says he endured a medical episode at that point, which left him in critical condition at the hospital and was pronounced dead a day later, the police said. So he didn't die immediately. He died a day later. It says Adrienne told News 12 that her late husband has suffered several heart attacks after the incident with the MRI machine and before his death. It says she recalled through tears seeing the machine snatch him and pulled him into the machine. Damn. It says she said they implored for the clinic to call for emergency help and referring to the machine to turn this damn thing off. But eventually, Keith went limp in my arms, Adrienne recounted. It says this is still pulsating in my brain. But it says here, Adrienne told News that she and her husband had previously been to Nassau Open MRI, and he had worn his lightweight training chain there before. It says this was not the first time that guy had seen that chain, Adrienne told the station, but they had a conversation about it before. It says a person who picked up a phone or called Nassau Open MRI on Monday said the facility had no comment, but the Food and Drug Administration, which is the FDA, regulates MRI safety and warns that scans with that technology can create a strong static magnetic field that poses physical hazards. So he's supposed to took the chain off. Now, whether they told him that or not, they can be held liable because they were supposed to inform him, but technically it's their word against hers, because, I mean, they could say, well, we told him, but then again, why would a guy not listen? It's flat out being rebellious, so it don't make any sense. So I assume some type of fines may come to this clinic, but I don't think they will close down because, I mean, technically it was negligence on his behalf. But it says the agency said that the careful screening of people and objects entering an MRI environment is critical to ensure nothing enters the magnetic area that may become a projectile and dangerous to anybody nearby, like we just saw in that movie. It says the National Institute of Biomedical Imaging and Bioengineering, meanwhile, cautions that MRI machines experts very powerful forces on objects of iron, some steel and other magnetizable objects. But it says and have the strength to fling a wheelchair across the room. God damn. So that thing is not exaggerated like we saw in Final Destination. That's not exaggerated, man. I mean, yeah, it was dramatized a little bit more, but if it can fling a 8-9 pound or 15 pound wheelchair across the room, then it can easily grab 20 pounds, But it says here, McAllister was not the first person killed by an MRI machine in New York, so I guess somebody else did die from it. But it says in 2001, Michael Colombini, 6, died when an oxygen tank flew into an MRI chamber that he was in, having been pulled in by the machine at a medical center in Westchester County. All right, so yeah, man, the Lord ain't nothing to play with, and I'm assuming that place got sued that killed this it says that killed Michael Colombini. It says an oxygen tank flew in there. I assume they got sued for that, because that's negligence on the behalf of the company. But the Lord ain't nothing to play with, man. He's very scared. He's fearful. Isaiah 45:7, it says, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, Yahweh, do all these things. So the Most High is ultimately in control of life and death. And, you know, we got to, hey, matter of fact, what's that precept? Deuteronomy, is it 32? Hold on. Give me 1 second. Yep, Deuteronomy 32. And I'm going to start at verses 39. It says, see now that I, even I, am he, and there is no power with me. I kill and make alive. I wound, I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. It says, for I lift up my hand in heaven and say, I live forever. But it says here, is there any that can deliver out my hand? So if the Most High got his target on you, then that's what it is. Because, hey, the Lord had to have some serious art with that Jake in order for the Most High to take him out like that. All right, you were in a chain inside of an MRI room, and the fact about it is the nurses wasn't supposed to let you in there. And usually when you have an MRI procedure, just you and the medical staff in there, man. Somebody's controlling the machine, they're looking at imaging, and it's usually just you up in the machine. Like when I went to get one done, I got one done of my back and so forth, man. And they said, make sure you take off everything. Take off watches, whatever, earrings, nose rings, whatever you got. They asked, do you have anything metal on you? A lot of times they ask if you have like a particular like pacemakers or metal implants inside your body and all that other shit, because it can be, you know, a detriment to your health. But they ask you, they say, do you have anything metal on you? Okay, because those machines ain't nothing to play with, man. You know? But anyway, let's read that again. Deuteronomy 32, and I'm going to start at verses 39. It says, see now that I, even I, am he, and there is no power with me. It says, I kill and make alive. I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. So Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai is the ultimate judgment giver, man. Okay, it tells us here in the book of Zephaniah, 3rd chapter, starting in verses 5, it says, the just Lord is in the midst thereof, and he will not do iniquity. And every morning doth he bring his judgment to light. He felleth not, but the unjust knoweth no shame. Yeah, so that's judgment. The Heavenly Father is very, very terrible, man. Okay, I mean, you can read about certain shit. It's like, how the hell does a baby get an umbilical cord? Even though that's, you know, it happens, but a baby gets an umbilical cord wrapped around the neck and sometimes dies from it. It's like the Most High didn't even allow you to fully come into the earth without putting judgment on you, man. Because you got to understand, these are those same spirits that's coming back from, you know, time of old, and over a course of time that's done wickedly in the eyes of the Heavenly Father, man. Okay? Matter of fact, let's get this in the book of Exodus. Because everything is reincarnated, man. Let's get Exodus 20. And let's start at verses 20. Yep, Exodus 20, and I'm going to start at verses 5. It says, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, Yahweh, thy power, am a jealous power, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. So yeah, you come back and you face your judgment in the earth. Okay, unlike what they teach you in the church, judgment is not done in hell. You don't go to hell when you die. All right, your body goes to the grave and your spirit descends to the spiritual world, and the Lord reads your judgment. You at rest for 3 to 4 generations, however long that may take. You know, some speculate a generation could be as 20 years to 60 years. It just depends, you know. All right, generation ain't like a century, like you know, like some people say a generation is like it could be 100 years, but some people say 20, 40, 60, because, you know, generation, people usually start having kids in their early 20s, and then, you know, your 20s and 40s, and then, you know, 60, you ready to die out, and then another generation comes from that. So you come back every 3 or 4 generations, man, you know, through the lines of your father, and then you have to face your judgment. All right. Here's the book of Ecclesiastes 1. And I'm going to start at verses place of judgment. I haven't brought that out in a minute. Ecclesiastes 3. I thought it was there in the first. But this is the book of Ecclesiastes 3. And I'm going to start at verses 16. It says, and moreover, I saw under the sun a place of judgment, that wickedness was there. That's talking about the earth, because what's under the sun? The earth. It says in the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. But it says here, place of judgment. So it's not talking about hell. You play out your judgment here on the planet earth. Okay, there's no such thing as hell. There's no mystical dungeon that you go to, or some type of dimension in the underworld and you descend to, and the Lord tortures you forever. That's not how that works. Now, some people who claim before they die they had certain type of hallucination, you know, the Lord, or they had like certain visions of them going to hell. A lot of that shit is just made up and fabricated stories. And a lot of those people that overdose on drugs and shit like that, a lot of times the Lord can plague your mind and make it seem like you in hell. But I guarantee you, when you come back from that experience, that was just like in your mind, if you ever come back from it. But if you was to stay dead, you ain't just spending an eternity in hell for a lifetime of sins you can never commit. So that's not how that works. Precept not ended. Sirach 39, and I'm going to start at verses 28. It says, that be spirits that are created for vengeance, which in their fury lay on sore strokes. It says, in the time of destruction that they pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made them. So yeah, the Lord had that Jake to walk in there, calculated in an MRI machine, grabbed them, man. Like in the Final Destination movie, it's a spirit of death. They call it the Grim Reaper, you know, which is simply a hooded cloak figure. You know, the spirit of death, which ultimately, you know, Yahweh Shai is that death angel that flew over Egypt. So if you want to say the Grim Reaper, yeah, it's truly real, because death is an actual spirit, and it's through Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, man. And it says here, fire and hell and famine and death, all these were created for vengeance. It says teeth of wild beasts and scorpions and serpents, and the sword punishing the wicked to destruction. It says they should rejoice in his commandment, and they should be ready upon earth when need is, and their time is come, and they should not transgress his word. So, hey, when the Lord calls for your ass, you coming home. Just how you coming home is the scary part, but regardless of it, man, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai is in control of everything. So with that, all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai. Lord's will you edify. To the next lesson. Shalom.